Hi, everybody. My name is Sammy. I am the Events and Education Coordinator at Goosefoot. So, as I was saying earlier, I teach business workshops, I run our public events, our online presence, social media, all of that. I will be honest up front, I've used eBay since high school years. I've used Etsy for many years until recently. I have never sold on Amazon, but I did extensive research to make sure I'm giving you guys some good information. Couple of disclaimers for those in the room. There's bathrooms just right down the hall here. If you go out the door and take a freight, I believe the women's restroom is still unlocked. So you're welcome to go at any time. Water up here. This is a workshop, not a lecture. So please feel free to ask questions at any time. I'm connected to the internet. We can pull anything up. And also, it sounds like some of you guys also have pretty extensive experience on these platforms. So please feel free to chime in with your own knowledge. I think these work best when we learn from each other. All right, so first off, I'm gonna go around the room, have you guys tell me what your name is and if you know what you're going to sell. So
My name is Pennell, and I just look around my house and see stuff that I don't really need.
great.
I'm Sarah, and I would like to focus on selling my artwork.
Wonderful. I know you folks in the room can't hear, or the folks online can't hear the folks in the room very well. We have somebody who likes to sell stuff from around their house and somebody who likes to make jewelry. So now I'm going to go online. Sheena, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yep, I'm Sheena, and I'll be selling my jewelry as well, and napkins and linens that are eco-printed.
Excellent. How about you, Ellen?
Hi, I'm Ellen, and I knit and I quilt, and I actually am a part of a co-op up in Oak Harbor, but I live north of Langley, so I am interested in investigating other mediums, other options.
Wonderful. How about you, Barbara?
I would be looking at selling my art. That would be watercolor and prints, original art, and cards.
Great. So it sounds like we have mostly artists in the room. I was never sure what mix of folks we were going to get. So first off, why would you bother selling online? Between social distancing, store closures, and all the uncertain times we're facing now, online in-person sales is really tough. The local folks have less money to go around. They're not going to as many things. So online sales helps really boost your reach and the number of customers you can talk to. E-commerce is growing 23% or more year over year. So every year, more and more people are getting online, more and more people are buying online. In fact, 51% of Americans prefer to shop online. 96% of Americans with internet access have made an online purchase, 80% in the past month alone. People are buying online. And there's a variety of what you're buying online, but we're kind of past the days where you can just have an in-person presence. I'm going to close this participants window. So there's some pros and cons to selling on third-party sites. That's what we're talking about today, Amazon, Etsy, eBay. We do have a workshop on selling on your own site later in the schedule, if you're interested in that. But obviously some of the pros are it's really fast and easy. They make money by you selling stuff. So they want to make it as easy as possible for you to sell your things. And then obviously you can tap into a really large existing customer base. People are already using the platforms we're talking about today. So you're not having to attract them. You're just having to attract them to yourself. And on that note, all of these platforms have really high competition because it's so easy. Millions of other people are also using them to sell their stuff. There is minimal customer interaction, especially for sites like Amazon. I was showing my boss today, you don't actually know what business you're buying from most of the time unless you look on a certain area of the page. Same with eBay, you're usually looking at the item, not the seller. Etsy is a little bit more recurring customers, but you don't get to control that interaction as much. You don't get to control what the site looks like, where their entry point is, any of that. So you get some minimization. There's also some potentially restrictive policies and rules. I'll talk about this platform by platform, but each platform has things that they do well and things that they don't allow at all. And then obviously you have to pay, I spelled that wrong, but you have to pay listing fees and commission when you're listing on other sites. Contrast that with running your own site, you do have to pay for all of the infrastructure and web upkeep. So to have a successful online listing, your item needs to have detail in it. Make sure you're replicating the in-store experience as much as possible on the screen. So have those descriptive titles. That helps people when people are searching for things. We all know the Amazon ridiculous titles that are like 30 words long, but they work, and that's why people do them. Make sure you have clear product images and videos, if possible. Describe the product, explain how much it weighs, what the size of it is, what the color is, even if you want how people could use it. Make sure you include any variants if you have varieties that are different sizing, colors, anything like that. Let people know all of their options. And then always have some strong company branding if you're going to do this regularly. Some of the online people I've bought from that I remember the strongest have done little touches to personalize their stuff. So they'll have custom-made stickers that they'll use to close the paper inside of the box, or tape on the box itself, or they'll include a little card in the box that says like, thank you so much for buying from me. Maybe their story, maybe not, and then a reminder to leave a review, because that's how you live and die online, is people leaving reviews for you. However, that is a lot of stuff. And I actually have a workshop just on writing product, making product photos, videos, and descriptions. And so that's going to be in June if you're interested in that. Obviously, all of our classes are hybrid like this, but that one I would really recommend coming to in person if you're interested. I'm planning to bring equipment to take photos and videos and let people play with them, test out their stuff, run their pictures and their descriptions by everybody else in the room. So folks that are going to be online, it's going to be a lot of sitting quietly while we play with the toys in the room. So obviously the biggest thing with selling online, no matter where you're doing it, is that you have to worry about shipping and returns. 80% of customers are influenced by the shipping costs and speed. They will make their decision about whether to buy something based on whether or not they have to pay shipping and how fast it will get to them. So your choice that you have to decide is, are you going to charge the customer for shipping, or are you going to build it into your cost? So what that means is, you know, for your jewelry, you can let Etsy calculate how much it's going to cost based on the weight and their location and your location. Or you can save free shipping and you just add, you know, the $5, $6, whatever that shipping is usually into the cost of the item, rather than like how much you would charge in person. Make sure you know exactly what your shipping costs are. If you're either building it into the price or you're charging flat rate shipping, which a lot of the platforms offer, you can really burn yourself by undercharging for shipping. And then all of a sudden you're either not making money at all or you're making less than you should, especially if your item is heavy. Yep. Anybody who sells online, I think, has done that, where you go and sell it and you're like, oh my God, I'm spending the whole cost I made just sending it to them. And that's going to become more prominent if you do any overseas business with the way the tariffs are going. So make sure you're aware of that. Know that an average of 30% of online purchases are returned. So whenever you're doing online business, returns are inevitable. But that's the same as in-person shops. People bring stuff back sometimes. So with these platforms we're talking about, they all have policies about how returns work, and you have to abide by them. Whereas when you run your own shop, you can set your return policies. If you're doing anything with clothing, know that it has about a 50% return rate. And that makes sense. That's how people shop for clothes online. You cannot try it on first. So you order it in multiple sizes, try them on, keep the one that works best, and send back the one that doesn't. It's just kind of a reality of selling clothes. 81, as I've mentioned kind of earlier, 81% of customers, they want simple, easy, free returns. They don't want it to be a hassle. And again, you don't really have a choice on these platforms. They have their dictation. I will say a lot of people are really worried about returns, and they do happen. You sometimes get bad customers, but that's true for in-person stores too. Most returns are due to retailer error. It was either not packaged correctly, so it arrives damaged. It wasn't well described, so they get it and they're like, this isn't what I wanted at all. Stuff like that. So if you're seeing really high returns with your business, maybe reevaluate your process. Are you describing things better? Do you need to take clearer pictures? You know, if you're taking dark and fuzzy pictures, yeah, a lot of your stuff's going to come back. And if optional, you know, consider local pickup or delivery options. Then you don't have to deal with the hassle of shipping if somebody's buying it more locally. Any questions on what I've run into first before we dive into Amazon? Yeah. As opposed to shipping. So local pickup would be if somebody lives anywhere within your area, you can set local pickup, so you'll agree to meet at X location and hand it off instead of having to do the rigmarole of shipping it. Okay, so Amazon is obviously the big boy in the room. They have 300 million customers that made at least one purchase annually. They are the domination of the online retail space. You obviously can do a lot of the work, but Amazon, unique to all of the other platforms we're going to talk about, they can handle the repetitive tasks that come with selling online. So they can do the shipping and warehousing for you. They can do the customer service. They can handle the returns. It does cost you more, but they have that option to do it for you. With those options comes high fees. There is a monthly charge to sell stuff on Amazon. There are referral fees that are dependent on what category of your product is. And there's also a lot of paid add-ons they offer. So make sure you're watching really closely how many things they're obligating you to, because you don't want to sell something and just lose all of the money in selling it to them.
So they say,
You can buy some on there. That's, again, additional fees. That's one of the options. So we will talk about that in a bit. Because Amazon is the big behemoth, there is a lot of competition on Amazon, including from Amazon itself. It is unfortunately not uncommon. A lot of small businesses report that as soon as they start selling an item that performs really well and they're selling a lot of it, Amazon goes out and makes a dupe of it and sells it for much cheaper than you are selling it for. So that is absolutely something they have been documented doing. It does, you have to be pretty successful for them to do it, but just be aware there's a lot of competition, including from the platform. And Amazon typically settles accounts every 2 weeks. So, that's how I get paid at my day job every 2 weeks. They figure out how much they owe me. Same with Amazon. They take out whatever fees you owe them and then send you the rest, but they only do it once every 2 weeks. So if you sell something, through Amazon, no, you're not getting paid immediately. So this bar is annoying. Keeps sitting in the way of the title screens. Oh, I have a chat. Oops. I should position on these things. I'll come in. Okay, so I know this is tiny. I'm not going to read through this. This is just an example of, these are the referral fees they charge. So as you can see, Amazon device accessories, the referral fee is 30 cents, plus 45%. Automotive and power sports is 12%. Backpacks and handbags are 15%. So every single category has a different referral fee. The referral fee is literally just Amazon's like, you get to list on our platform. So make sure you're paying attention to those fees. They can be a little sneaky sometimes. However, Amazon has really great market research tools. So if anybody in this room was like, I don't know what I'm selling, there's a ton of stuff that can help you figure out, what has good profit margins, what's selling well, what's overcrowded. There's the bestseller rank, and then you can try to use some of that to figure out niches or unmet needs. Sorry.
basically you don't get this information until you sign up.
Yes. Yeah, you get it with your seller account. Was somebody online asking a question? No, okay. And then obviously there's product restrictions. So Amazon isn't taking any more trading card sellers. They feel like they're at their max. So if you're selling trading cards, can't do it on Amazon. You can't do 3D fine art like sculptures. You can't do mystery boxes or anything that doesn't fully disclose what is in the item. Obviously, you can't steal human body parts. And right now, you can't sell Confederate flag merch. So like, that's just some of the examples. There's a pretty extensive list of what can and cannot be sold. And the restricted list does have some items that can be sold in certain conditions. So have fun looking at those. So Amazon has 2 plan options. They have the individual plan, which costs you 99 cents a sale. Usually that really only works out if you're selling 40 items or less a month. Otherwise, I would go up to the professional. That only gives you access to just listing and some of the order management tools. The professional option is $40 a month, no matter how much you sell. But it has a lot of tools built into it, like selling and reports. You can sell worldwide, and you're eligible for the featured offer position. I believe that costs money, but you can at least pay for that spot. To set up an account, you're going to need your business contact and address, bank account routing number, active credit card that they can charge these fees to, or your government issued ID, and your tax info. Every single online platform we're going to talk about today, you are going to have to provide your government ID. This is part of the Anti-Terrorism Act. They have to make sure that these platforms aren't being used for money laundering, basically. So they have to know who the money is going to. So as we were talking about earlier, Amazon, unique to all of the other platforms we're going to talk about today, has some fulfillment options. So there is the FBM, that is fulfillment by merchant.
It's like informational talks.
Yeah, Sammy's actually up in the cash.
Somebody's unmuted. No worries.
Was that me?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, if you're fulfilling your fulfillment by merchant, that is you fulfilling it. So you place the item on Amazon for sale, but you are managing the shipping, the returns, all of the customer service. You're probably not going to be eligible for Prime shipping because there's a lot of stringent requirements that are very hard for small businesses to meet, which a lot of customers will search by Amazon Prime, but you get to control everything else. Then they have FBA, which is fulfillment by Amazon. This is what you were mentioning earlier. What you do is you send your inventory to Amazon. They keep it in one of their warehouses. They handle the shipping, the returns, the customer service, and they pay you when an item is sold. So basically you're just like, here's my stuff, you handle it. With that comes, you have to pay for storage and fulfillment fees. So that does cost you more, but it can save you on time and or having to get extra staff, depending on how much you're selling. Amazon also has a really cool revenue calculator, and you don't actually have to have an account to play with this. You can just access it if you just search for Amazon revenue calculator. As it says above, this is just a guide. It's not guaranteeing, blah, blah, blah. But so you can search for a product, either describe it, find its SKU if you have that, or go find the item on Amazon, find their unique identification number and paste that into this bar. Tell it where you're located, and it will tell you probably how much you're looking to make with that kind of a product on their site. So I'm just going to kind of blaze through these pretty quickly, but when you're listing your products on Amazon, you have 2 options, an item that already exists on Amazon and a unique item. So if you're selling something that already exists on Amazon, and this is where I had to show my boss, everything you buy on Amazon, very few of it comes from Amazon. If you look under the buy now button, there is a little list of who the store is from. So it's an existing item. It'll just kind of randomly assign which store it is based on their algorithm and quality and blah, blah, blah. But it'll just look for the user that they're just buying it from Amazon, but the order is going to your store specifically. So again, you just go find the item on Amazon, find that ASIN, the Amazon Standard Identification Number, go to Seller Central, paste it in, use the dropdown to describe the condition. You don't have to sell just new items on Amazon. You can sell used. You just have to disclose what quality it is. And then click sell the product. That lets you set your price, fulfillment options, and there's a couple other prompts. but it already has the description of the item. It already has a title. It already has photos. So you don't have to add all of that. So that's the easiest way to do it, but it does have to be something that exists on Amazon. However, if you have a unique product that you are making yourself or doesn't already exist on the site, you're going to list it as a new product. So again, in the Seller Central, you're going to click that Add a Product button, but then you're going to click I'm adding a product not sold on Amazon. That means you're going to have to do all of that work of the title, description, photos, all of that work. But then once you go ahead and post it, Amazon then assigns it a number. It's up on the site, it's for sale. So any questions on Amazon before we move on to eBay? Amazon is, like I said, it's the biggest one, but it's also so big, it's a little intimidating. So you kind of have to decide if it works for you depending on what you're selling. Next up, we have eBay. So eBay is smaller than Amazon, but still respectable at 132 million active users. However, their active users have stagnated over the last 2 years. That means they're not growing anymore. Makes sense. The company's been around for almost 30 years. They do have over 17 million seller accounts, so that is a pretty high ratio of users to sellers. However, most of those users are more like you. You're just selling a few things that you have at home. Pretty straightforward. It's not like a full-size business. It is better for items like unique and used items. Obviously, you can sell used on Amazon, but it's sort of a mental perception. Amazon is the department store of the internet where you can go and get everything. eBay is the auction house. This is the backyard garage sale, the auction house of like, I'm going to get unique stuff. I'm going to get collector's stuff. I'm going to get, interesting stuff that was pre-owned. Obviously, you can sell new stuff on eBay, but people don't go to eBay first for new stuff. eBay pays out about every 2 days. The sale takes place, and then the next day you can transfer the money to your bank, and then that can take about a day or so. So it pays out much faster. However, you can use the funds as soon as the sale takes place to pay for shipping if you do it through eBay. So you don't have to wait for the money to get into your bank account. You can just pay on eBay with the funds from the sale instead of having to pay for it first or wait till the money comes in and then pay for it. Because the ideal is to get it out as soon as possible. eBay also has a couple of seller account options. The personal account has no listing fee for up to 250 items a month. That's a lot. After that, it's about 35 cents per listing. Even if your item doesn't sell, you have to pay that. If you have an eBay store, this is more meant for businesses that are regularly selling product on eBay. The level that you're going to pay depends on how many items you're selling. And I didn't bring that breakdown down. If you're interested, you can just look it up online, or I can send you a link. But the subscription price ranges from $8 a month to $350 a month. The $350 is like enterprise level, so probably no one that would come to a workshop of mine. Then they also take the final value fee. That's their cut of your sale. It's usually about 13.6% of the total cost. Again, it depends on the category that your item is in. And that total cost includes everything. It's not just the price you listed it for. It includes handling charges, shipping costs, sales tax, any additional fees. So like whatever the customer is paying at the end, eBay takes 13.6% of that. So again, make sure you're building that calculations into your product pricing. And again, the seller dashboard is going to tell you other fees that they have. They are pretty upfront about it, and they have fewer surprise ones than Amazon does. If you're setting up an individual seller account, you're going to need your full name, your address, your date of birth, and your social security number. Again, so they can make sure you're not a terrorist. If you're setting up a business account for the eBay store, you're going to need your legal business name, your EIN, your business address, individual ID for any stakeholders. So this is the owner. If you have a board, it's anybody on the board, anybody who makes decisions for the company. And then if you are an LLC, they're going to need your tax designation as well. And they will email you information like, hey, we need this information from you. Again, they make money by you making money, so they want to make it as easy as possible. eBay also has some pretty cool research tools. This is available to all sellers at no additional cost, but it can help you figure out what to sell, when to sell, and what price. So it helps you see, hey, how are products like this selling across all of eBay? What's doing popular and why? Is it that it has good images? Is it that has good text? Sorry, I saw another chat pop up. And then you can also search keywords in the research tools and get a bigger picture that way as well. It also, if you are somebody who wants to almost like drop ship, so you order from a factory that makes it and sell it on eBay and it never actually gets to your house, it just handles it all through that system. That is something people do. Obviously, you get a smaller cut because you're not actually possessing the item, but you're also not doing any of the work other than listing it. So if you wanted to go that route, eBay's research tools has a section that'll show you, this is what I want to sell. And they'll go, these are the people that make it. So you can go talk to them about ordering it. Oops. So again, creating a listing is super easy. You've got two options. You've got or three technically. You got the quick list. This is probably what you're used to. Walks you through the options. So it asks you, what's the title? What's the description? What are the photos? If you are doing an auction, you can set the reserve price. Like, I won't sell it unless it makes at least this much money. How long do you want the auction to go? And then you can also do the buy it now option, obviously. And then you can schedule stuff to not start until later. Advanced listings gives you a whole lot more options. You can add a video. You can drag and drop photos from your Apple device into the app. You can edit the photos in the photo editor they have built into eBay. Again, the simplified workflow is letting you buy the shipping directly from those shipping retailers, USPS, eBay, UPS, and FedEx. Plus, you get more listing options. And then the relatively new thing that only came out in 21, I think, they added a scan to list for trading cards. So if you have the eBay app and you're selling any trading cards, you can scan the card and it'll fill out as much of the data as it can for you instead of you having to go and search it all up. So depending on what you're selling, options.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like it's possible to sell something from somewhere else.
Yep.
Your own stuff.
On Amazon and on eBay, you can sell stuff from somewhere else. It's called drop shipping. It's wild when you get into it. Yeah, exactly. Basically, you're setting up with a factory that makes it itself. And then the selling platform that's handling the sales. And whenever a sale happens, the factory gets notified to send one to whoever bought it on the sales platform. A lot of folks, not a lot, there's a decent number of folks that do that. That's how they make kind of a passive income on it. I don't know how that kind of business will fare in the current economic climate, but it has been something that's been happening for the last 5-10 years or so. But like I said, it sounds like most of the folks in this room already know what you're selling, so that's not necessarily how you're going to do things. eBay's shipping options include free shipping. You can let eBay calculate the cost for you based on the package size and buyer location. Make sure when you're setting up these dimensions, you're measuring the box that you are going to ship it in, not necessarily the size of the item. And then also the weight. So if you're doing a lot of online sales, I really recommend getting a package scale. So you know how much your item weighs. You can weigh it in the box you're going to ship it in at home so you can calculate everything correctly. But if you don't have a package scale or you just don't have one yet, especially if it's something that you produce regularly that you want to ship, you could always take it to the post office and ask them to weigh it. They will. You can also set flat rate shipping. This is simple for buyers, but again, you run the risk of the costs being higher than what you charged. So you might be out a little bit more money. And then again, eBay also offers that local pickup option. So you get to set whichever one you want. Okay, I know I'm burning through this pretty quickly. Any questions on eBay? All right, sounds like most of the folks here are here for Etsy. So Etsy is pretty unique to the other two we've talked about. Its focus is on handmade, vintage, and unique goods. So some of the stuff you're selling might be also a good fit for Etsy, but it's really meant to be that person-to-person sale. It is smaller than the other platforms, but still perfectly respectable at about 95 million active buyers. 2/3 of Etsy's users are between the ages of 18 and 44. So it's a really good place to tap into a younger market. Amazon and eBay are, eBay's a little on the older side. Amazon is obviously across the entire spectrum because there's just so many people. Also, most of Etsy's users, like the slight majority, are American based. Jewelry, craft supplies, paper products, and weddings are the top categories on the site right now. Those are the things that sell the best. Household and wellness items are seeing a surge though. Big brands can't use the platform, so you're not going up against those big name brands that everyone knows. They're not allowed to use the platform. However, some categories are oversaturated. If you look for like custom mugs or something, there's a bajillion options. Screen printing is really common, so it's usually the design that sells less than the product itself. However, the unfortunate thing with Etsy is in the last few years, there's been a really big influx of mass-produced items. It is supposed to be for handmade items. I think they've downsized somewhat the team that used to quality check for that. So there's a lot more stuff that I've even found it when I've been looking for shirts that I'll find a shirt I like, buy it, and then it comes in an Amazon package and I'm like, wait a second, I bought it on Etsy, not Amazon. So that's just a reality of the site. With Amazon and eBay, you can somewhat customize your storefront. You can set different colors, you can add images, you can add description, all of that. Etsy only lets you set your name, your icon, your shop description, and your banner. So you're limited in how you affect how it looks. However, that usually works for most folks on Etsy because everybody has the same limitation. So nobody's making a super fancy store while everybody else isn't. The nice thing too is if you are the type of artist that is doing any street fairs or selling in person, you can sync Etsy if you're using a Square device so that you don't oversell. So if you're at a street fair and you sell a necklace you made that is also listed on Etsy, it'll automatically take it down from Etsy so that you don't accidentally sell it when you've already sold it. So that's nice. The fees are interesting. You mentioned you've had an Etsy account for ages, which is great because I learned in looking this up, I also had an Etsy account for ages. Now, if you want to set up an Etsy account, you have to pay a setup fee. It's not super high. It's only $15 to $29. And it is pretty dynamically calculated based on where you're located and what kind of categories you're looking to sell in. But be prepared to pay for one of those if you don't already have an account. Every time you list an item, it's a 20-cent listing fee. And unlike a lot of the other sites, listings expire after 4 months. So you have to pay the listing fee every time you want it to go back up. So again, if you have like a wide variety of products, be prepared to pay those listing fees and be prepared to pay for them 3 times a year. Etsy's transaction fee is 6.5%. And again, that's the total cost, so price and shipping. They don't charge that on sales tax in the US though, that's not included. But if you're selling anywhere else, it is included. Etsy also has an upgraded option called Etsy Plus. It's optional, it costs about $10 a month. And it comes with a bunch of ad credits. You can also register a domain, so you can register a .store domain, or you can get a discount on other domains. So instead of going to Etsy/store/goosefoot, you can just go to goosefoot.store and it'll take them to your Etsy store. So it looks like a custom store, but it's all managed through Etsy, so it's easier than running your own website. Etsy doesn't have the market research tools that Amazon and eBay does. That is something that they just don't offer. So if you're trying to figure out, what should I sell? How much should I charge for it? How should I list it? You're just going to have to search the site. But there are some third-party tools out there that, you know, if you just search Etsy market research tools, they'll come up. I haven't used any of them, so I'm not recommending any particular. But yeah, most artists that are selling on Etsy just sort of poke around the site, like, how much are other people charging? And unfortunately, you also then don't get the data of like what's performing particularly well. Etsy does have a deal with USPS, FedEx, and Canada Post that you can get up to 30% discount when you buy the shipping through Etsy itself. And then on the shipping fee, again, you get to decide if you want to let Etsy calculate it, if you want to offer a fixed price, or if you want to offer it for free. Unlike all of the other platforms we've talked about, Etsy is unique that it allows downloadable products. So you don't just have to do physical products on Etsy. If you are an artist that makes digital art, you can just sell the file online, and then you can set it up to either instant download or made to order. So if you have anything customizable, when I, oh gosh, when did I last use it? I made a little model for Japonica downstairs of their restaurant, and I modified it from one I bought at Casey's. But I changed the walls because they were very seaside restaurant, and I wanted it to look like Japonica. So I found a paper pack of different wood textures, so I could find ones that looked like the walls in Japonica. And I found a downloadable product on Etsy. And then as soon as I paid for it, I got an email of like, here's your download. And then I could print it off myself at home instead of having to wait several days for some paper products to get to me. This is also really common for like wedding invitations. You can get somebody to customize your wedding invitation with your information, download the file, and then send it to your printer instead of having to buy it full from somebody else. So that's the fun thing about Etsy is the downloadable products. I'm not going to go through this, but basically just like all of the others, creating a listing is super easy. Every step asks you deliberate questions, title, who made it, what is it, when was it made, what's the category, how you want to renew it, is it physical or digital, description, all of that. All of them are this easy because, again, they make money by you making money, so they want you to sell stuff. I feel like I've burned through this really quickly. How long have I been talking? Oh man, I've only been talking for 40 minutes. Any Etsy questions? It sounds like we have a lot more Etsy folks than other platforms. All right. So obviously there's a ton of third-party sellers as well. I'm not going to talk about them because it's a little bit of an overload. But there are a bajillion niche and alternatives available. For art, I don't know what the most popular is right now, but I know Etsy's made some moves. They've allowed AI art, and that made a lot of artists mad, so they've gone and off on somewhere else. I just can't remember the name of it right now. Poshmark and Depop cater to fashion and clothing. OfferUp is local sales. Newegg is tech products. Obviously, Facebook Marketplace is really big for selling locally on social media. So anything, depending on what category you're in, there's probably another third-party seller out there that I did not mention today. And you kind of hear about them for the grapevine or from shopping yourself or just getting ads about them. So like if you're on one of these platforms and you're not really seeing sales, you're not seeing success, feel free to go look for other ones. There's a ton of them out there. It's the internet. It's a very wide, wide place. So find what works best for you. So even though I've talked really fast because there hasn't been a ton of questions, some final tips for success, and then I'll either let you guys go really early or we can pull up stuff on the internet, whatever works best for you guys. The number one thing you need to do when you're selling online is to encourage reviews. Online stores live and die by reviews. So make sure you are asking people, hey, if you like this, please leave a review. Not everybody's going to, but a lot of people don't mind, especially if they really love the product. You just have to remind them to do it because we're all doing so many things in our life. So make sure you ask people to leave you a review. If you have the capacity, consider personalizing your items a little bit. Again, like I mentioned earlier, get that custom sticker, get a card to drop in that just says thank you. Make sure you're letting people know you are a real person behind the store. especially for Etsy. Etsy, more than the other platforms, people will shop by artist rather than by product once they get to know you. Especially if you're doing Amazon, you got to prepare to pay for ads. It's such a huge marketplace. It's very easy to get lost in. Just a couple times a year, I highly recommend dropping some money to pay for ads. It's same with Etsy and eBay. It does help your sales if you're struggling. But it's a little less required for those, but just because Amazon is so oversaturated, but all of them have ad options. Also, don't be afraid to use other places on the internet to point to your Amazon, Etsy, or eBay store. Like, let people know in your life, hey, I've got this really cool thing. You should go check out my listing. I run the social media or the website and the social media for the Peakville Arts and Crafts Festival. A lot of those artists only have Etsy shops, and that is what gets put on the listing for the street fair. Make sure you're getting your pricing right. And I don't mean you sell it cheapest. There's always somebody who's going to be able to do it cheaper than you. There's also certain products that if they're too cheap, it's suspicious. Like, why are you charging that little? Make sure you are not charging so much that people won't buy it. And if they're not buying it, maybe adjust your price. But don't sell it for so cheaply that you're not actually making any money, because then it's not worth it for you. Make sure you're always measuring and reevaluating your success. So as you're going, pay attention to, is this photo working? Do I need to take a new one? Do I need to up the description more? Am I getting a lot of stuff back? And what does that tell me about what I need to adjust? And also just even what you're selling, the markets change all the time. Tastes change all the time. We're currently going into a period of wild economics. That's going to impact how people shop. If you just stick to what you're doing because you've always done it, it's gonna start hurting you at some point. So make sure you're constantly paying attention to what's happening with your shop and make sure you're making enough money. I also forgot to put it on this slide, but with all of the platforms now, if you make more than $600 a year, you are going to get a 1099K from the platform. And that's true even if you're not selling on it. If you have PayPal or Square or anything like that, they're now all giving you 1099. Some of them are doing it for every single seller. Some of it aren't doing it until you hit that $600 mark, which, my boss is an eBay person, and she was expressing frustration about that earlier. She's like, I'm getting double taxed. I already paid tax when I bought the item, and now I have to pay tax because I sold it.
$20,000 threshold.
Yeah.
Or 200.
Yeah.
Sales.
And if you're selling, used stuff at a garage sale, the IRS still doesn't care about that. But with online, it's so hard to distinguish what is something you had lying around in your house versus, what did you sell via drop ship, all of that. So they've just decided, nope, everybody has to report anything over $600. So be aware that that's a new thing in the last year or so. You're going to get a 1099K. You're going to have to add it on your taxes.